Okay, so today we're going to dive into living alone,
Right.
something that a lot of our listeners, I think, are probably doing or have done at some point in their lives.
Right.
And, obviously there are lots of amazing things about living alone.
Yes, lots of freedom.
Right. But we're going to kind of go a little bit deeper today and look at some of the maybe not so obvious things to think about.
Right.
And we're going to be drawing from this great piece called Part 2, Living Alone, Thriving and Surviving .txt.
Okay.
So if you're listening, learner, this is all about helping you not just survive, but really thrive
Exact.
in your solo life.
Yeah. And the material really highlights some key areas like, having an emergency plan in place,
Oh, that's so important. Yeah.
personal safety,
Right.
and even, shaking up your routine a little bit,
Huh. Interesting.
understanding that time alone,
Sure.
and really making sure you have a good support system.
I think that's something people don't always think about when they're living alone. They think, oh, it's just me. I don't need to worry about other people.
Right.
But we all need people, right?
We do. We do.
Yeah. So let's jump right in. And the first thing that the source material talks about is emergency preparedness.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people might think, oh, I've got a first aid kit. I'm good.
Right. Exactly.
Well,
I've got my Band-Aids. I'm set.
exactly. But the source really digs deeper and says, look, when you're living alone, you're your own first responder.
Right.
So it's really about being prepared for those situations where you don't have someone to rely on.
Yeah. You're not calling your roommate to come help you.
Exactly.
You're on your own.
So have you thought about what you would do if, let's say, the power went out
Oh, yeah.
or you had a minor injury?
Mm-hmm.
It's those kinds of things that we need to think about when we're living solo.
It's not just like, do I have enough water? It's like, what if I sprain my ankle and I live on the third floor
Exactly.
and I can't get down?
Right.
Or what if, I don't know, there's a fire and you need to get out quickly. Do you have an escape route plan?
All of those things.
Things like that. So I
Yeah.
think that's a really interesting takeaway there, is to not just have the supplies, but have the plan.
Absolutely.
And then speaking of being prepared, the source material also talks a lot about personal safety.
Right. And this is another area where solo living requires a bit more thought.
Yeah, because again, you don't have that built-in buddy system,
Right.
you know?
And the source isn't saying be afraid, it's saying be aware.
Yeah, I think sometimes people hear personal safety and they think, oh, I need to get a weapon or I need to be really scared all the time.
Yeah.
But it's not about that.
Yes.
It's just about being smart,
Absolutely.
keeping your phone charged.
Yes.
That's a big one.
That's huge.
Because that's your lifeline
It is.
if something happens.
Right.
Letting someone know where you're going if you're going somewhere new,
Exactly.
especially if you're going alone.
Especially
Yeah.
sharing those plans just in case.
Right. So it's just about those little things that you can do to be proactive.
Right.
Okay. So moving on, the source material then gets into this idea of the comfort zone
Yes.
and how easy it can be to get stuck in a routine when you're living alone.
Yeah. You come home from work, you make dinner, you watch TV, and you do it again the next day.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with routine. I think routines are great.
It can be comforting,
Absolutely.
but we have to be careful not to let that routine become so rigid that we start growing.
Right. It becomes a rut,
Exactly.
and you're not experiencing new things. You're not challenging yourself.
And that's where the source really challenges us.
Yeah.
It says step outside that comfort zone regularly.
Like how?
Well, it could be anything from taking a different route to work
Oh,
to trying a new hobby or even traveling to a place you've never been before.
right. So it doesn't have to be this huge thing. You've got just some
Right.
tiny little things to shake things up.
Absolutely. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll become with that discomfort.
Yeah. I love that idea of getting comfortable with discomfort
Right.
because that's really where growth happens.
Exactly.
Okay, so then the source material delves into this really interesting distinction between solitude and self-isolation.
Yes, this is a big one.
And it's nuanced,
It is.
right? Because we're talking about living alone.
Right.
So obviously you're spending time alone,
Right.
but there's a difference between choosing to be alone
Right.
and isolating yourself because you're trying to avoid something.
Exactly. And the source really encourages us to pay attention to how we feel when we're alone.
Right.
Are we feeling refreshed and recharged, or are we feeling withdrawn and disconnected?
Yeah. Are we using alone time as an excuse to not deal with things?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if we are the source, offers some solutions.
Like what?
Well, it could be things like finding creative outlets,
Oh, yeah.
like writing or painting, or even seeking therapy,
Right.
or gradually easing back into social situations.
Right, taking baby steps. Yeah, so it's really about being honest with yourself,
Is.
about why you're choosing to be alone.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then finally, the source material talks about something that I think is so important, and that is support systems.
Yes. Even lone wolves need a pack.
They do. I love that.
Right.
And I think, when we talk about independence and self-sufficiency and all of that,
Right.
sometimes we forget that we still need people,
We do.
right? And we still need connection.
Absolutely.
And the source really emphasizes that it doesn't have to be a ton of people.
Right.
It's not about quantity. It's about quality.
Yeah.
Right? It's about having those few people that you can really rely on,
Exactly.
whether it's for practical help or just emotional support. And those people don't even have to be physically present.
Right.
Nowadays we have online communities.
Exactly.
We have all sorts of ways to connect with people. So yeah, I think that's a really powerful point.
And I think it ties everything together really nicely. Well, the source is ultimately saying, enjoy living alone. Embrace that freedom and independence.
Yeah.
But do it mindfully.
Right.
Do it responsibly.
Be proactive.
Exactly.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So it's not just about like, oh, I love living alone, so I'm just going to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
It's about like, I love living alone, so I'm going to make sure that I'm doing it in a way that is healthy and sustainable.
Exactly. And that leads me to a final thought for our listeners.
Okay.
Considering all these different aspects of solo living that we've discussed today, what's one small but significant adjustment that you feel inspired to make?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, just one small thing that could make a big difference in your experience. So think about that.
Yeah, think about that.
And let it simmer.
That is a great takeaway.
So there you have it, folks.
Our deep dive on living alone.
We hope this has given you some food for thought.
Absolutely.
And some practical tips.
And some actionable steps
Exactly.
that you can take to make the most of your solo journey.
Right. We've extracted these insights from this great source material.
Right. So hopefully this has been a shortcut for you
Absolutely.
to really understanding this topic.
And enjoying it.
And thriving.
Yes,
But-
thriving. All right, that's it for today.
See you next time.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.